Are we live streaming it?
I put it on my YouTube channel. I don't really have any traffic there, but I'll give you a link so that you can access it.
Okay.
Okay. Got it. All right. So, you said, all right, that's cool. Do you know much about gene keys at all?
What I know so far is it resonates more with me than just using human design.
Right.
Richard Rudd, I think, was one of Alan's students, Ra's students, and channeled what he channeled, and that's what Gene Keys is all about, the 64.
Well, it's still similar in ways to human design. It still uses a lot of the same elements.
Yeah.
But what they do is they sort of map out the gates in a what they call it a hologenic profile.
Right.
And what I'm reading, each of the gates has like a point 1 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the lines of the I Ching. I don't know why I'm getting weird feedback noise, but so rather than try to like eat an elephant in the next 30 minutes, we're gonna just go through the lines, and those are pretty significant.
Okay.
Your computer is not compatible with a speaker. Your computer has a big speaker.
Let's try that.
Yeah.
Let me turn the volume up. That still sounds weird.
Yeah, but take the speaker off.
It is.
The external.
It is. It's off.
Why is it like that? Oh.
Jesus. Sorry about that. All right. Well, the 2-4 is similar to in human design, but what it is the first two, your life's work and evolution are a 2. Your radiance and purpose are a 4. We have the same radiance and purpose, but and the 55 is pretty significant. Well, the 2 in human design, they call that the hermit. In the gene keys, they call that the dancer. It's about movement. And probably the biggest thing to take away from that is to follow your natural gifts. And this lays out what those gifts are, which is self-assurance, strength, freedom, and intimacy. But as a hermit, you need your alone time. It's like, leave me alone, let me just be. And that is really critical for your mental and as well as physical health. One of the shadow pieces of that is blaming. Okay, this is your fault. Yeah, it's all about self-responsibility, especially with the 55. The wounding is denial. And denial is healed with ease. Not trying to make anything happen, allowing. You have a second line in the evolution, which is about passion and, hold on, need extra eyes. Passion and relationships. It's best to surround yourself with high frequency people, people that have no agendas, that aren't trying to make you do something. That's where boundaries come in. It's like you start to feel those agendas and, you know, low energy, you need to step away. leave them alone. The radiance, you have a fourth line. The fourth line is about opportunism or networking. It's sort of a clash. It's like you've got this very alone hermitness. The subconscious side is all about connection and community. So that's got to take a while to kind of figure out that balance for yourself. The opportunist or networker thrives in love and community and being of heartfelt service, not just being of service, something you want, what nurtures your heart, and that's what you give. The wounding of the fourth line is resistance. And the shadow side of that.
Say that again.
Can you
Say
hear me?
that. What's the wounding of the fourth line again?
Is rejection.
Yeah.
And the shadow can be about overgiving, giving too much of yourself. And it can also be manipulation or corruption. And your purpose, I don't want to go into the shadows there, but I have the same purpose, is dishonesty. So it's all about really being honest with yourself and having integrity, as well as with people around you. Yeah, the key is self-honesty, not only with yourself, but being in integrity. And it's about softness and romance. The one thing I noticed about your profile, you have no fifth lines at all. And all of your developmental stages, let's see if I can do this backwards. All of these, the EQ, SQ, and vocation are all, and your culture are all first lines. I have not yet done the pearl sequence, so I can give a little bit of knowledge there, but that's not where I've studied yet, and that's coming up this fall if you're interested. Now the purpose in here has two meanings. It's the ending of the activation sequence, and by purpose, it doesn't mean what you do in life. It's about what you are. And the gift there is intimacy. And the fourth line is about breath. If you haven't read The Art of Contemplation, I highly recommend that. It's all about pausing and sort of contemplation is mental, it's body and soul. So learning to pause and get out of the mind and more into the body and breathe would be great for you. Your attraction sphere is your only sixth line. Are you familiar with the 3 stages of the sixth line? Okay. So, and can I ask how your age?
35.
Okay, so you're in the second stage. First stage is all about trial and error. Now you're into the point of like, okay, I know that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. Let's do something different. And what people are drawn to you for, the gift is leadership. But it's also in those stages. The sixth line is about, the shadow is disappointment, and the line is also of innocence. Now, as you, excuse me, as you move out of, this is part of the Venus sequence. So your purpose in relationships is also about intimacy. It's about the nurturer or the diplomat. It's like about really being available, or the diplomat, usual response to how are you? I'm fine. Nothing here to look at. But the other aspect of that really is the deep nurturing that comes from you. The Gene Keys goes backwards. It goes from your teenage development. It goes in 3 7-year cycles. The last one to develop is your IQ, how you mentally process things, which is affected by the earlier age development emotionally. And then the first stage of development is sort of your soul. So in the IQ, you have a 4th line, which is called the influential mind. And its shadow is that it can be inflexible. It's like, once you get that thought process, it's like, this is how it is. There's no changing that. So that's something to kind of, and your gift there is magnetism. The EQ is what develops from age 7 to whatever 7 years past that is, 12. And you have all of the rest of these next 4, you have the first line. And the first line is about self-esteem or self-sabotage. Emotionally, it's knowing your value. And the gift there is inspiration. The SQ is the soul development, and that's sort of like from infancy to age 7. First line. The first line is about certainty, and rhythms and routines. And the gift you have there is inquiry, being curious, knowing how things work, why things are. And the vocation, like the purpose, has two meanings. At the end of the Venus sequence, it's the core wound. It's what you brought into this carnation. It's the DNA of your ancestry and the wound. The wound there is depression. And it's healed with honesty. As you move from the core wound, it's the beginning of the pearl sequence. And it's about production and originality. And the gift that you have for both of those is patience. It will take time. It's not something that's going to be immediate. From the vocation, we go into the culture, and you also have a 55 there. So that's going to be real significant in your life. Do you know anything about the 55th?
We have that mutation that's occurring that a lot of people in human design talk about. I personally believe it is going to be occurring in 2027, but also already has. Yeah. And I've seen that in my line of work with babies, with the children that are coming in right now. But it's that solar plexus mutation, learning to be basically surfers riding the emotional waves. The gene key for that is intense. I was actually reading through it while a client of mine was in labor for like 70 hours.
Oh, wow.
And it was, the download was like, it was very intense. But that Gene Key was explaining how basically the new earth, all the changes we're going to be like seeing and going through with how families are going to look, how education is going to look like, and yeah, all of that. So I'm very fascinated by the 55. It shows up a lot in my life. 55 and 22. Of course, I was born 5/22. In the last year, 2020, when we went through the whole lockdown and everything, I packed up and left, and on the road, 55 and 22 were like everywhere. So I know it's been
It's a lot of it is really about the shift for humanity. Actually, I'll make that personal. It's my shift for me out of victimization and being self-responsible. It's like, because you said that, I had a reaction to it and felt this. I'm going to say, you made me feel that. That's not the case. That world circumstance, that argument, that whatever triggers us, triggers me to want to respond or blame outside of myself. And that is the biggest key. That's the piece that humanity is shifting through. Well, the beginning of it, COVID, it's a big piece of that.
Yeah.
But will come next will be big parts of that.
Yeah.
And I think you have the 22 as your pearl. I didn't look what the number was, but I know the gift is graciousness.
Yeah.
And suffering or victimization, the pain is grace. And as you work through that, the gift of graciousness comes from. And it's the third line, trial and error. You got patience in there, So that's, and then it goes back up into the life work, which is self-assurance. So all of those experiences in life were necessary for you to be now here and who and what you are. So does this feel like any of this resonated well with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Not going into detail, because I'm still at this point of deciding whether or not I want to share my story with individuals, the few individuals I have intimately, like one-on-one, shared what I'm going through, what I have gone through. It's a lot. And so a lot of people kind of shut down, or that rejection comes up, like they can't handle that. In astrology, it's a lot of Scorpio energy that I have going on. So transitions have been a big part of my life. And that whole Phoenix energy, a lot of people can't handle.
Right. Rising from the ashes.
Yeah. So.
Well, and for me, my biggest challenge, and I've had huge struggles in life, is letting go of those stories as being struggles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anywhere from homelessness and losing everything, health stuff, it's like, that brought me to this. Okay, now what?
Yeah.
So I totally get it, in especially the intimacy part and sharing.
Yes. Yeah. The fear of rejection has been, all those shadows you brought up. So I've been playing with sidereal astrology, but some people argue that tropical is whatever, but I can literally pinpoint specific events that line up with those gene keys in my tropical chart. But I feel like I'm closing things out. I'm like right at the tail end of all of these stories, like this whole entire novel. And it's kind of interesting because I've opened up something new that just feels very heart opening. But I'm still being pulled back into the old stuff. And so I'm just kind of like, I feel like I have one foot in one story and one foot in the other story. And I'm toggling. So, and it has a lot to do with that sacral energy with my children. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Let me end the